So I was like, you know what I mean? This seemed like the right kind of vibe. Hello, Pimpernel Jones.
Welcome. This is Neuropa.
It's like the People's Harmonic Orchestra if the people were robots. Here, you know what? This morning is dedicated to Winston Churchill. That's right.
Yes.
Winston Churchill.
The peacemaker.
The peacemaker, yeah. Whiskey. Scotch, whiskey, and Winston Churchill. Dude, look at that guy. Winston Churchill. Winston freaking Churchill. Okay, all right. Sorry. How you doing, man?
I'm doing fine. How are you, Andreas?
I don't know. I don't know how to feel now, cause like now I'm thinking about, Winston Churchill, and there's a lot of emotional baggage that goes with that. Just shout out to all my British friends who I love. Joe, good to see you. It's awesome that you're here. Yeah, earlier today I was talking to some British people. Actually, I have a friend, John. I don't know if I should
What did they
their full
say?
name. They said nice things. They made me remember that British people can be pretty cool. But it was reminding me also of this whole interesting idea that British people
Wait,
speak with
you're
accents.
telling that's true, but so it means you're telling me not all British people are like Churchill, just
Yeah.
like not all German people are like Merkel, I mean.
Wow. Yeah, Merkel. That's where you were going. Good one. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, people can be, but there's a way, right? There's a way. I think that that's also a thing that British people ascribe to, is being British. It's sort of a British cultural thing. I've always wondered about that too, right? There's a point when Romans started giving citizenship to everyone who was Roman. So even outside of Rome, you became a citizen of Rome. And that's such an influential concept because you're like, wherever you go, you're Roman. That's why Americans are the way they are.
I
Hey, I'm
mean,
American wherever I go, right? That's a Romanism,
yeah, but isn't like technically Roman law applied in most all countries as a baseline?
Sort of. I mean, I would say it's heavily nuanced, but I mean, like Napoleonic law, and then also British law is more Roman than Napoleonic still. British law, though, is its own case law based law. So it's like if this happens and we accept that, then we point to that and say, well, this was okay here, so let's continue to do that there, right? It was accepted by this group that we respect. But there's something cool about British law and British order, and I think that's something. I mean, the word for it might be cool, right? And tempered. There gets to be a point where Saxon psychopathy or violence or whatever the Viking thing that people talk about, it becomes ordered in what is the British ideologue. And it's something where they're cool-witted and they're saying cheerio, right? It's the most even-tempered violence that you could see. That's like, it's kind of very similar to like what karate is, if you think about it. The Eastern idea of holding together martial arts. So I don't know. I mean, it's kind of interesting, like the emergent order of British culture and the idea of Pax Britannica, right? Because you have Pax Romana, which is peace Roman, but it becomes British peace, right? British peace, Pax Britannica, is really the naval thing that's been emergent. Even, I don't know, depends on how you look at it. I'd also say the Brits did steal the Danish commercial ships, and so that was a major transition for their naval power, but all the more point, right? Because then you've got another example of a group that comes into power and dominance over a world order. And
Well,
so,
I mean, we're talking about, in a way, fictional entities, organizational entities. All it makes me think of is one talk I recently had with David, and I guess we're gonna get more into this because the recent interviews were about Irish and English history, or Gaelic, Celtic history, however you want to call it, which also appears heavily coded. And then he just somewhat alluded to the question in terms of, since we know there was all this industrialism also in England, I guess up to the 50s, 60s or whatever, how much of a heritage within England do these Englishmen actually have? And were they not just like the Americans, only recently orphan trained, onto the prison island, let's say? So that's
right.
another
I feel like
question, of
that's the
course.
craziest. So there definitely are people brought to England, but the amount of people that are from England, I think, is really interesting. And you can see the native culture.
I mean, their kings are from Germany, supposedly, so Germany, so maybe they just
That's
took some slave cattle with them, We're gonna
well,
make our new factory island.
there's definitely like foundling, orphanage, situations like that. But you look at a lot of the local people in England and the ones who have the strongest accents. That's because they're the most indigenous people to. I mean, like the travelers, right? We call them the travelers as if they're the Romani, but a lot of them are probably the indigenous Saxon and Celt, and even like the remnants of the Picts. And there are still the people that were in England, but they were assimilated either through the kitchen or eventually becoming part of the Saxon culture that became part of the British culture. So you do still have local indigenous people the same way you do in America, right? The same way we still have reservations. But England's a lot smaller.
It's the same way you have the Ainu in Japanese and how
Yeah,
overly represented they are in media and everywhere, right?
this is kind of true. I don't know. It depends how you look at it. I feel like the educated Brit is at least as, if not more, for sure represented than the Cockney or whatever that is. Like the idea of the local British person,
Yorkshire.
the Yorkshire British person, Birmingham, or like whatever. Even the worker. I think the worker's represented. You've got the Liverpool, the Stoke City. You've got all these sorts of Manchester, like these are working places, and so anyone can become that by working there. But the idea of an indigenous accent that's super strange, that shows that English is a new language to this group. So they have always spoke their
Don't say
own
it.
original English, right? And that's how you can tell that they're originally from England and they're conquered, right? But yeah, to your point, also, it's crazy that like to be in charge of England, they have to have the royal family has to have a lineage that proves they're not from England. That's crazy. That's the whole point of being the royal family. You're like, yeah, I don't really come from here.
Which I think is kind of ridiculous on its face. But hey, God save the king, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we're at that point now. I mean, I don't know. We can't assume King Charles' gender. Like, not really.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Have to be careful with
Well,
that.
I've been harping on this movie, but I'm going to keep harping on just in case anyone hasn't heard me. I think everyone should see Guy Ritchie's new The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, which is the actual name Churchill called it, and only declassified or disclosed in 2016. But just crazy the things that come out as comedies. I mean, just I don't know. Like it's completely insane that they have these movies that are showing.
It's like Inglorious Bastards, no? And
Exactly.
even
It's like
last
that.
time you showed yet another video. Sorry again, I forgot that one have to make a huge list and do like a marathon of all the great movie recommendations of classics you're giving me. There was some other movie, I guess last time you showed, which was also something about Germans in the 60s or no, right, yeah. Not a hot topic at all about the supposed camp guards and then making fun of them. I forgot the name of the movie, but you mentioned it last time.
The TV show maybe.
It may be a TV show, yeah, but
Yeah.
like a
So
comedy show making fun of the camp guards
Yeah,
or making light
Hogan's
of the camp life.
Hogan's
Yes,
Heroes,
yes,
Hogan's
yes, yes.
Heroes, which was like an everyday American TV show that everyone saw all the time in I think the 60s, right? Or 70s, 1965 until 1971. So completely normal kind of sitcom show about Americans that were in a POW camp and they could get in and out whenever they wanted to. They had to be in the camp in order to kind of find out what was going on with the Germans. So it's actually based on true stories. There really are amazing amounts of espionage stories from spies back and forth, but only because the Americans didn't have all the information, right? The British did. Like the British knew literally every comm that was going down between everybody. They knew every piece of information that the Russians had, the Americans had, the Germans had. The British knew everything that was going on the entire war. So they were the only ones
Almost
to know
sounds as
exactly
if
who
someone
died.
was masterminding these conflicts.
I mean, legitimately, to let the war go on that long is insane. It's totally sadistic, right? Like they had the entire war was let to happen by the British. This is completely accepted fact now from all of the information that's coming out with the Turing machine. Like for decades now, we've known this, that they know exactly who and when every boat's going to be and who dies. It's crazy, and they just let it go on
But
for
are you sure
years.
you mean the Turing machine, or do you mean this Enigma decoding thing, or literally the Turing machine?
Both. So like the Turing machine was
I'm
part
thinking
of
of
the
the Turing test, maybe now. That's why.
so Alan Turing created the machines, right, for the British. So he had the capacity to decrypt the Enigma machine, and also they had another machine designed to figure out how many people had to die to make it look like the war was really happening. So there's a
Oh
certain
my
amount.
God.
So a certain amount of British people had to die, right? How many? Right? So like at least 4 boats go down. It's probably
This
believable.
reminds me of what David said, talking about different types of wars and kind of questioning, how many of these individuals were actually deployed and had like real, whatever, combat experience, and how many just were chilling around at bases. I mean, as I told you, I referenced quite a few war stories from eyewitness accounts from the German army, like, people that then were 80, 90 years old when they did the interviews. And like I shared, I mean, obviously there were real conflicts and so on, but even here, it's never really clear which was eventually who was the bigger threat. That's what I'm going to say now, of course, politically incorrect, but just saying it's not only that the opposing side appeared as a threat, but it could be your own military as well, if you're not behaving or whatever. Or even like here, if you say they needed to make sure a certain amount of individuals died. I mean, I heard one story, I also referenced this on an earlier Neuropa, I believe, about Afghanistan or something, or at least one case was where someone said, well, I basically got uh, left in the ditch by my own people and stuff like that. So it's crazy. Or
Yeah.
attacked even by friendly fire because of some miscommunication or even deliberate or whatever. Yeah, so I mean, anyone who's ever played an online game, friendly fire is real. And in real
Well,
life, it's always turned on.
you have to have a certain amount of people to make it look believable. That's just so insane to think about that the entire war from the very beginning, like not quite the very beginning, but before the Americans were involved. So it's a long time to know exactly what every message, every radio, every secret communication is saying, who's going where. It gives you a lot of power, right? I mean, but also you could have used that power to probably stop the war. The argument is, well, then they would have changed their communications. But if they were going to change their communications, you still would have had the machines and the technology to decrypt it again. So maybe, but I think the idea of just espionage for the sake of espionage so that the entire war they would know what's going on without giving away that they knew what the Germans were saying, it's just a little crazy. Like you get to the certain point, it's like actually they mastermind all of World War
Well,
II.
like I said, Churchill, the peacemaker. So
Yeah, cool. All right, well, we were going to open up a document called Neuropa 23, very creative title, and watch it before it vanishes because sometimes these episodes seem to disappear, right? It's we're doing our best, but I think we talk about the most interesting things on the show, so that's sometimes the reason. I don't know what to say.
apparently, even though still I think it's kind of, how do you call it, cowardly a little bit from the YouTube ad agency and censoring group, welcome, that they don't at least let you know exactly what the supposedly offending thing is. because then at least, you know, you could easily remove it, or you could, you know these are things you only gonna clip on other platforms or something. It's I mean, obviously it's deliberately kept vague. This reminds me of some kind of dystopian science fictions or whatever, or I'm not even know now what kind of philosophy or idea this is, you know, this ominous vague authority which you cannot properly pinpoint and you're kind of afraid of and you have to adhere to, but they never really tell you what they want exactly. But they can
Yeah,
always
earlier
strike you down.
today, YouTube was like, "What keeps you energized during an editing session?" It's the concern that I will be censored more if I don't censor enough of myself. I don't know. That's what it feels like. It's a vibe. But we're gonna talk about meow chronology. That's a pretty good. I should have just called this whole thing meow chronology. That was like an option. Okay. Bizarre SpaceX combo conspiracy, some Glev, some frequency of occurrences, interview with Fomenko. I'll just go through and open the tabs, and we'll look at these up until we get to Hollow Underground. So let's start with the SpaceX
Awesome.
footage rocket. What did you think about the ding-a-ling thing? I mean, this was great, right? Like, hooray!
Honestly, by now, my general, how do you call it, credulity or something? What
Yeah.
is the proper word? My faith that I put into it,
Credulity? That sounds right. Credibility?
yes.
Credulity? Yeah.
How much faith I put into these is by now so little that I'm not even, let's say, in particular investigating this. This video came up and was just kind of fun because here you can see the guy on the right-hand side with the phone. He's filming something, but at least from what you can see here on his screen, there is like nothing there. So, and that's of course just one small part of the whole thing, but kind of fun. And of course, it's moving in a strange way. Honestly, I didn't investigate so much. I was just like, oh, see, there's another supposed rocket launch. I don't even know what this is supposed to be good for.
Well, the
I
new
didn't investigate.
SpaceX rocket can land in this weird little clamp thing, and so that it can catch the rocket. It's a safer way to land a rocket than for it to land on the ground, is it gets caught by this claw.
Oh wait, this was a landing, you're saying?
It's a special kind of landing apparatus. So, see, it comes down and it has like 36 different, or probably more boosters, which is exactly what Werner von Braun's thing was. It's just that it was a lot harder to have microcontrollers that, I mean, especially even just regular size controllers, that could run 32 different fuselage rocket propulsion systems in tandem with each other, right?
But it was good enough to land on the moon. What are you saying, Andreas?
So anyway, for him to be able to angle it and land it in this thing is a great feat because it shows that you can put a certain amount of momentum, put a certain amount of oxygen, put a certain amount of thrust from every angle of
So you're
the
telling me
multiple.
Elon Musk finally found a solution to the lunar lander game from the 60s or
I
wherever
don't
this
know.
is
There's
from?
probably a way better way to explain this. But you gotta imagine like a ball of match heads, and each one of them's a rocket, and like each one you can pull up and down and light a little bit more, light a little bit less, right? So that way it can kind of angle the momentum of this thing that we're moving, right? And it goes like this, uh, uh, and then once it lands in the area, it's caught by the clamps. There's nothing super marvelous about that. It's like important. It's just like not
I mean,
space stuff.
generally,
That's just whatever.
if it is exactly what they really did, I'd say, okay, it's cool. You figured out how to properly fire chemical combustion, that it makes sense, in calculating in all the forces. Still, I'm pretty sure any type of magnetic resonance style device would be a lot smoother, look better, and, not be as complicated in terms of, calculating combustion outputs and
Yeah,
aligning 30 different thrusters.
I guess. I mean, but to an extent, you're gonna have to have something that can do that, right? Like if you're gonna have something in atmosphere, and so that's the funny thing is most of these things are designed like a submarine for space. So like, well, once we get it out there, to this place we're telling you exists, it's a vacuum, then everything's going to be fine. But before we do that, we have to go through our own reality, and that's the part they kind of don't talk about. And like going through our own reality is really hard. Like that's kind of the point. Like that's why space is such an amazing fantasy to them because like there's just all the rules are gone. But to get there, you have to go through the Van Allen belt, and to get to the Van Allen belt, you have to go through so many layers, and you have to go so hot, and the rocket's so loud, and you should probably go deaf and explode just from the amount of sound waves that are vibrating. Like that,
At
it's just
G-force.
yeah. So the reality of it is a lot harder before you even get to the fantasy. So building a rocket that can deal with that, that's all he's really saying he's done. He's like, okay, well now when my and everyone, I don't know if you didn't do this, but I assume most kids at some point saw at least or played with a toy rocket. Have you ever? No? You know what I'm talking about? Is that crazy, really? Okay, model
Can you show
rocket.
me what kind of toy rockets? I'd be curious. I mean, of
Sure.
course, fireworks, yes.
Yeah, dude.
Fireworks, yes,
So you get these,
but not this type, no.
well, okay, so there's a toy rocket. It's like $20, $30. It used to be cheaper. And you can do this with your family, and it's really like thousands of years old. This idea. So you've got a gunpowder like fuselage that goes into a tube, and there's enough. What do you say? Resistance or thermal resistance that it doesn't explode, but also that the energy has to go somewhere, so it goes straight down, right? And so by the energy going straight down, it lifts the rocket straight up, and now you've got a toy rocket. Now this is a model at scale of something you could build that was much bigger, and of course something much bigger would also have to go through different conditions like thinner oxygen, less oxygen, zero oxygen, and have to have oxygen with it to deal with even like the oxygen being too cold, right? So you can only go so high with a rocket, which is why so many people are interested in balloons and everything else. But you can build a rocket. There's nothing that tremendous. I mean, let's do like ancient Chinese, ancient China. There we go. They used to do this and be like, look how cool we are. We have dragons and we can launch.
Oh yeah, they look
Yeah,
cool.
they are cool. That's freaking great. There's nothing uncool about that. That's the most cool
But
thing there
still,
is.
and I wish I'd find it again. And I also want to know if it's a real document. But one time, quite a few years ago, doing random research, I found this paper which looked like it was from the 1860s and was about like electroacoustic weaponry. Again, I don't know if it was backdated or not or what happened, but I was like, oh, this is really cool. Always the question, are these tubes like the I want to say Reich. Are they associated with Reich? Yeah, I think so. The Skybuster technology, where you just have rods pointing at the sky, a sky acupuncture, or like we had Majid Abdelaziz on with weather making machine.
I think
Yeah.
the idea of so hold on a second. Unilateral.
So I'm just thinking, having big tubes, of course, you can shoot like a supposed rocket from it, or you would use it as some kind of resonance chamber to create resonance or sound wave, shock waves, which would probably be much more effective or devastating, depending.
A unilateral antenna will focus waves in a direct, and there's a lot of uses for this. For instance, you could have a sound like a speaker that only like you could aim a speaker at one person in a crowd a half a mile away, and they would hear you, right? Like unilateral speakers, I think I don't know if that's exactly what they call them. But yeah, you can make a speaker that literally only one person could hear, and like you could aim it at them in such a way that like if you move it just a fraction of an inch, nobody else can hear it because it's like it's directing it. And the same thing with lasers or with radiation.
Just as we're on a somewhat related topic, I want to shout out Maggot actually, because I don't really know how it happened, but years ago when I was doing Team Rabbit Hole and only published on Odyssey, because I was like, oh, if I ever talk anything about virology, I'm immediately gonna get everything banned on YouTube. I somehow stumbled across your channel, Maggot, on Odyssey. And this is actually where for the first time I saw the Douglas Dietrich interviews. The only issue was I literally couldn't start them on Odyssey because the files were too large or something, that it just wouldn't work. And I just saw these strange pictures which he puts up and the super strange tiles. I was like, what is this? And then a little bit later I found him and I was quite, how should I say, enthralled with some of his ideas that he's relaying. We talked about him before. Anyways, just want to shout out. And yes, Orgon Buster, that's what I was talking about. Thanks, Maggot.
Based Maggot. Sorry. Anyway, also not Hunt for Red October. That's like the wrong movie, but October Skies. Have you ever seen October Skies? Important movie. One time when I was a kid, so clearly they groomed us, right? Like this is a movie they took us all to in like elementary school. We were all. I had no idea. I don't know if
I'm
my
not
parents.
American enough. Please explain this to me. What's
Yeah, I
happening?
know. I'm gonna. I'm sorry. This was, but I gotta walk you through how weird it was because you don't usually get taken to movies in our school. You know what I mean? Like that's not like a common occurrence, especially my school. And so we went to this movie, and it's like this coal mining town in West Virginia where this boy from the Donnie Darko movie, and no one else has seen Donnie Darko that I know of at the time, except for like the coolest goth kids in school and me. So like for him to be the star of this ultra patriotic movie about a kid who escapes a coal mine in order to become a rocket engineer for NASA, and that's the plot of the movie, and it's a true story, by the way, right? This kid ends up building rockets with his friends and his teachers, mathematician teachers, like, I'm gonna help you. You can do it, boy. We're gonna make sure that you get to your school and all that, whatever. And it's just this dream of him in the 50s, not dying of black lung for working in a mine, right? Because that's the other thing that people used to do, is work in the mine, right?
Well, then I'll give a reference from my school, and
Crazy propaganda.
This may well not be typical. I almost want to say I hope it's not typical, but guess, and maybe there were a few, but guess which one particular movie we went to with German class. Although I have to say that our German teacher also was a French teacher,
So
so
not
that may have
Amadeus.
inspired it. No, but we literally went to watch, also because I don't know how this happened. We were reading the book in school, and then literally
Oh,
like
Les
half a
Miserables.
year or a year later, the movie came out. No,
Oh man.
uh, I guess in English it's also simply called The Perfume. If you
Oh,
heard about this one,
the perfumist, where he kills chicks and cats and tries to make them into an orgy scent that the Pope loves.
that's the book
Based,
we read in school,
based,
just so you know. And then we
based.
went to the movies.
What a cool
And
teacher.
recently I saw it again at a friend's place, and I
Oh,
was
I love
like,
that
oh
movie.
my God, like, what is this?
Yeah, I think that's like a popular European movie. Am I wrong? Like, I feel like almost every
I
European I know
guess
has seen
because it's
that.
probably like a French or German French production, or maybe something like this,
Or it's
you
like a
know. So
propaganda that they wanted all Europeans to see for some reason, that they could bottle like the scent of sacrifice and suffering for the pleasure of
yeah,
the elite or something, right? Or the intelligentsia.
yeah, that's
I don't
probably the
know.
backstory to the whole thing. But
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
crazy
it's got
movie.
Dustin Hoffman in it, so there's clearly something about it, right? He was in The Graduate. I don't know. Not a necessarily sync oriented thing. So, okay, the rocket. What about this guy? Uh,
So he's someone I had brought up before because generally I find him very how you call it, sympathetic, right?
okay.
And like a nice guy. This is a pirate software. He was working for Blizzard, and then, as he likes to say, was hacking nuclear plants for the government. And I here just want to point out that it's interesting that now there's so
Oh,
many
wow.
different
He's talking about
creators
really.
that bring up now again the Earth shape topic. In this case, he's just saying, oh, it's such a cool combo conspiracy because you can have the standard AE map, which would be limited in one variant at least by a circle, and then you can expand it and you have a whole thing, and it's so crazy. And he's saying he loves it because it's so insane. And I'm like, well, dude, you're a hacker, just take a closer look. You can figure stuff out. But I understand everyone has their own thing and so on. It's fine. But just want to point out again, also in association with the whole final experiment and TFE thing, and Alex Stein and Candace Owens, editor, and William Shatner and Neil deGrasse Tyson and SpaceX satellites suddenly all want to go to Antarctica in December. More and more creators, for some reason, also seem to pick up the topic. So I'm just saying, temperature is rising in my perspective.
Yeah, that's kind of funny. I mean, I think it kind of lends itself if you make games to uh, the flat Earth model, because all games seem to be made that way.
Oh,
They're
don't
all
say
flat
it. Don't
levels,
say it.
I'm just saying, in a physics engine, All right, you're right. This episode, okay, Gleb doing some cool stuff here. He's talking about
Yeah, so
Anatoly.
always, so nice to hear these guys. And even here, even if you don't have a lot of time, it's only 20 minutes. And all that Gleb here is saying, they start talking about history, and he just starts explaining and says, well, imagine this. There is a witness account. Even in any situation, you have two witnesses. They will have greatly varying accounts. And then imagine it's being handed down one time, it's being handed down another time. There are now separate streams of these accounts. How likely is it that 100 or 200 or 500 years later, you would still have accurate accounts? And you're like, oh my God, it's so amazing. Someone can apply basic logic, you know? And then people wonder, I don't know, why some individuals like Eastern scientists, or however you would want to call it, because it seems, at least in terms of public perception or whatever, they retain basic logic, whereas in the West, it's all being exchanged for pure ideology, and a scientific method is nowhere to be found. And recently I heard it's not called peer review, it's called peer pressure. Yeah, so yeah, there's more I can say about this in a bit, to related ideas when we get to the hollow stuff. But yeah, anyhow, always great interviews with these guys, very understandable. He was talking about basically Russian history and the different depictions of Russian history and how they miraculously changed how they depicted everything at around, again, 1850. That's when the depiction switched from, I guess, Roman looking like stuff to suddenly whatever, Russian Orthodox looking like, or however you would properly call it.
Get up in here and check out Serge's channel. Yeah, it's important. And then this is the frequency and recurrence intervals of Easter Sundays. Wow.
Yeah, so here, this is from our small research chat. One valued participant pointed out that, yeah, you look here, yeah, what do you see here? You already got the right graph. I didn't even see that one's there.
What April do you notice? 19th sticks out. 19.
Ooh, so could it be that the whole calendar is actually revolving around the 19, which would again confirm David Ewing Jr.'s insight into the 19 coding? And yeah, that very too much is based on the 19 and modeled around it. Even here, it's a very nice graph. Here you can see it most clearly. It's not the grades that say significant, it's not double or something, because I guess of how calendars are structured, but still, you have the obvious accumulation around April 19. Highly curious.
It's like a big middle finger at you. All right.
Yeah. Oh, it's almost like, or it almost looks like this. What is this symbol? Is it the symbol for Allah or something? Which looks like
yeah, it does.
Because it's a middle finger. Yeah, you know, it's kind of. Well.
Oy vey. Okay, so then interview with Anatoly Fomenko. You've uploaded this.
Yeah, so this here, I just wanted to point out, this is also from Serge's channel, who made the translation into English. And I was like, since I don't even know if there's any content on Fomenko in German or that's properly translated.
Oh, wow.
There's a few mistakes the AI made, you know, where it's mumbling about a bit in the first few minutes, but then it's pretty clear. And also, that's also why I put the subtitles there, because, you know, it's the basic Russian, but I wasn't sure if the AI would be so good at doing that, and I'm not able to, you know, verify it myself. So I used Serge's English version, where you still hear the Russian slightly in the background. And unfortunately, the AI, and I also cannot set it up with this Nova AI thing I'm using also, because I guess it's not so expensive. I can't really give.
Dude, I'm a huge fan of hearing Russian in the background. Like, that's the way it should be. You should always hear a little bit.
Yeah. I agree, but this is the problem, because I cannot tell the AI, only translate what's the loudest, which in this case would be the English to German, which is what I want. So even it sounds like, even in the background, you heard them whispering, and quite a few times it's like German or something strange, because it seems the AI is picking that up as well and translating it, even though I told it I want an English to German. But, you know, the AI is not maybe the most specific. There are more expensive, better tools, but there isn't, the funding for that is not available yet, but I think it's, let's say, 95% decent. And yeah, I mainly did this so that German-speaking individuals get some idea of what Fomenko is talking about. That's also why I chose this video where he first talks about his art, actually, and this. Oh, and now, because I watched it again, to be clear, the four-dimensional art that we looked at last time, which is in this video, and, you know, non-topological whatever spaces, this is Fomenko's art. So I'm like, when I see this, I'm like, no surprise, this guy is an effing genius, one of the first mathematics youngest professors. And then he comes along with something like the new chronology, because already before, I want to say in the most positive sense, he's quote unquote insane, but in terms of like insanely amazing, yeah? And insanely creative.
Nice.
And just have an amazing capacity, even in art. So I'm like, I'm about to say, what a Renaissance man is this, you know, but That's maybe the politically incorrect term in this particular case. But
Based.
yeah, pretty cool.
Well, awesome.
And
So
yeah, there's
anybody who
English
speaks
and
German,
Russian
I'm
too.
gonna send this to all the people I know who speak German because there's a lot of you out there. A lot of you thinking in German. All right. Make sure that you can see this. It's pretty based. All right. Well, what about this one? This is another Ewing video that you have out.
Yeah, so this is also just again for any German-speaking individuals. This is aside from the one that I translated together with Martin, which was actually your interview on the common cannibals, which performed pretty well over time. Oh, and also I wanted to mention this. Why are these translations among the top videos? Oh, but I'm going to point it out later again, then I'll tell you about who's promoting it actually. But here what you have is basically the forged history presentation, very slightly truncated for the parts where the AI just was talking mumbo jumbo. And I was adding actually a bit of footage, so it's a bit of an updated version, and it's translated to German. So again, that German-speaking individuals have a little bit more than only the Common Cannibals interview you did. And here, I guess, it's one of the first interviews I did with him, and also not that long. It's even here only 40 minutes, I believe. But again, just for people that don't jive so well with English or have troubles with it or don't want to read the subtitles, they can go here and they can have a first insight into what David is talking about. So for some of the main things, yeah, pretty cool.
Perfect. This is great. I'm also going to copy this link to save for later. All right.
Yeah, please do. Everyone, anyone who's speaking German, because I'm always complaining, what percentage do you think I'm living in Austria, right? And technically one could think maybe I would know somebody here or whatever, but what percentage of the view time I have on my channel do you believe is from Austria?
What do you think, like half?
Yeah, half. You're pretty good. 0.5%. Yeah. So.
No, really? It's that low? It's
Yes.
that low? Really? I figured that. Do Austrians not use YouTube as much, or is it just that it's so controlled that they can't get access to it, or something?
Well, I know everyone.
Maybe Austrians have something else besides YouTube I don't know about.
But
I don't know.
It's like a bit of a niche topic, and yeah, I'm gonna bring it up again later, one of the translations. But basically, what I want to say, I'm just gonna put it down now so I don't forget. Why did some of the German videos I put up even perform somewhat? It's simply because, let's say, 2 or 3 individuals that have bigger platforms actually shared it. Later, we will actually see one example where the translation we did of your Common Cannibals interview was even mirrored on a website by a guy that, I think did great activism. But now I could also tell you that all of these 2 or 3 individuals that actually, probably because I deliberately wrote them and I was like, hey, dude, you're a cool guy, check this out, or relaying it to a friend of theirs and be like, oh, maybe they want to post it on their larger platform just because, they're providing lots of interesting information. Most, if not all of these individuals, if you would only go by official media reports, would in some way, shape, or form be deemed to be, let's just use a soft word, to have authoritarian tendencies or something like that. And then the joke I wanted to make, but I effed it up now, was first going to be asking you, oh, Andreas, are you Californian? Are you liberal and so on? He would be like, yeah, pretty much in this culture and so on. And then I'm like, why are only people in German-speaking areas promoting this, which according to general media standards would be considered untouchables, basically. So it's pretty sad. What can I say? But at the same time, it's of course amazing that those individuals actually are sharing it. And just to be clear, those are the individuals that always, talk about peace. They talk about patterns. They talk about how can we resolve the conflicts? How can we learn more? But of course, by the general media consensus, they are deemed to be super dangerous, evil individuals. And quite a few of them even got into some variants of legal troubles simply for posting information that may not fit with the mainstream narrative, even though, again, they never advocate for any type of violence or intolerance or anything like that. So it's the reality right now. Maybe not surprising to you, but I just thought it's kind of fun, if they would only know this.
Somebody told me my microphone was too low. Did I turn it up too high now, or is this okay?
I think you're good.
All right. So, and people let me know in the audience if it's too high, but I think I try to get it to a right level. It is interesting how people have emotional reactions to things, but if you kind of systematically point it out and you say, okay, like you believe in these things, right? Let's start with some standards. Maybe you believe in human rights or something, right? You believe in human rights and you think that the Geneva Convention is a good idea. I think a lot of people don't even know what the Geneva Convention really is, but if you hear it, you're like, yeah, Geneva. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so you're like, okay,
Exactly.
yeah, the Geneva Convention. Yeah.
Or the Templar new Templar new Octagon Convention.
Yeah,
Yes,
but no,
awesome.
Geneva, like to an American at least, Geneva, like it just sounds like chocolate. You know, it's like it's okay. It's not so bad. So, prohibition of medical experiments, the Geneva Convention, additional protocols prohibiting non-consensual medical scientific experiments on individuals.
Oh, don't talk about that part.
Specifically, Article 32 of the Fourth Geneva Convention protects civilians from physical suffering or extermination and forbids biological experiments. And also, you could look at consent or informed consent, how much people really can understand these things. And it becomes, well, but you had to sacrifice this for the benefit of the state. And you're like, okay, well, then just don't be the pot calling the kettle black about fascism, because if everything you do is taking away from self-determination for the betterment of the state, then what the heck do you call yourself, oh ally of Dick Cheney? I just feel like that's the only way to handle it.
Yeah, nothing to add.
Next time on The View. Okay, well, you had this up. This was interesting. You've got
Oh,
Mephistopheles,
yes,
who's our friend, our dear friend, by the way. I actually think
yes,
he's
he
one
did
of our
the
favorite people.
presentation on forgotten Arvanite history on one of the last Neuropas, and here he's
Yeah.
just discussing basically the Fournier tarot, I believe it's called, and one or two others. And what he's basically doing is seeing how it connects with this so-called language of the birds, which I
Hmm.
still can't properly explain as a thing, but like as a way of thinking about language or understanding symbols and so on. Oh, this is my card actually. This is Princess of Wands, but this is the Thoth Tarot. And also showing some interesting differences. I can't recount all of them now, but quite some relevant differences between the modern Rider-Waite decks and the Fournier or Tarot de Marseille versions. Yeah, this is a good one. Because here, for example, what you can see is it's not like a lightning bolt, but it's some kind of like flower thing or whatever, which is destroying the tower. But yeah, he can recount this historical stuff about those decks better than I can, because I honestly never really looked into the Fournier or Tarot de Marseille decks in terms of how particular they are. But yeah, anyone who's interested in tarot can check this out.
Very cool. Based. Yeah. Everybody also make sure you're subscribed to Mephistopheles' channel, because he's our bro. And while he did a really fun, this is actually the episode you can check out where he has his, it's like a pretty decent presentation. I feel like he's also a fun person beyond, like, see the presentation, but also notice that he does all sorts of cool, kind of like esoteric reactionary commentary, which I like as well. And his conversations are cool. So, just plug in our bro here. Just like, be part of our world a little bit there. All right, what about this Portuguese museum of the nation of Portugal? Oh no, it's about Brazil,
Oh,
isn't it? My bad. Sorry. I was
so
thinking
let
about
me
Portugal earlier
see.
today. That's my only excuse.
Yeah, here for some reason I can't even tell you why I referenced it. I don't know anymore. But
What?
yeah,
Okay, Rio
oh,
de
no,
Janeiro.
no, of course no, because it's a national exposition. Because it
Yeah,
seems like one of these World Fair things from 1908 in
right.
Brazil.
Yeah.
But I didn't have the time to properly look at it yet. I just found it curious because I had not heard that there was a World Exposition in Brazil as well. I know about the American
Yeah,
ones,
there's a video.
Paris, I believe, Vienna.
Panama.
Uh,
Yeah, South America has a
that's
bunch of
sweet.
ones. Some of the cooler ones I think are in South America because they have like the most stuff to steal. If you think about it, there's a lot going on in South America. But yeah, the Panama exhibit was pretty crazy. Um,
Yeah, and just briefly about tarot. Also, Alexander, of course, Mephistopheles is mentioning this, but anyone who doesn't know, the regular playing card decks everyone uses, they are basically a watered-down version of the tarot, just lacking the major arcana. And yeah, it almost
dude,
seems
look
some
at
kind of
this. Like
yeah. I
it's
mean,
like a landslide mountain that they built into the side of this friggin' what the
it's
heck?
it's
Okay.
it's prepared for the controlled demolition.
Oh my gosh. Hey, look at that. Let's get up in there. Yeah, there you go. I know you like your Tartaria stuff, everybody. I know you want to see this. I know you've been wondering when are we gonna just like lurk at some old stuff? And good job, Raph. You did not disappoint.
So I guess that's one, extra exposition to take a closer look at. But like I said, I haven't really gone through that yet.
Yeah, but it looks pretty based. I'm into it. Oh wait, one more. Dude, come on. Look at this one. Let's just build these
It
random
looks like
buildings.
Austria, looks like Vienna to me, basically, if I look at that. So
I mean, I just wish that. I mean, if this is really real, then do that more. Burning Man could be this every year. It could just be build a Victorian superstructure. You don't even have to burn it down. Just make a nice. Okay. What about Revolt of the Tartars? Here's a video you pulled up by the Observation Lounge.
yeah, so he's apparently also gone into this over the past years. Also, this is one of the few videos on that list I don't think I've really properly checked out yet. But again, but he says he's only been into this for a year, and also the view counts are a little bit strange. But yeah, I think this is something I myself. Oh, it's about a book also. I'll have to properly check this out. I just put it down, let's say, as a backlog thing.
Legit. All right, we'll check it out. He's got a couple of these though. CCP, Great Wall. Do you think he's being targeted by the CCP and keeping his views down? What's his?
Like
I don't
you,
know.
or it's not
What?
clear,
They
That's
love
that's the
me.
bad thing. Oh yeah. Oh, that's what happens when everyone loves you. You get shadow banned by everyone
Right. Yeah.
simultaneously.
Well, it's like you can love me or hate me. It's better than not caring. That's what you got to say. Oh. God.
Masaru
All right.
Emoto would agree.
Speaking of people that we love, Nachiketa, great conversation.
Yeah, so here, also to anyone who wants a more extended take on what I may talk a little bit about now, I may have had mentioned that I'm checking out this underground site close to Vienna. We should actually do even a particular episode on this. I sent you some pictures which are not for public release, although by now I already found quite a few videos. I think the next one is one of those where you actually have someone showing a few images, because to what I spoke with the guy there, it's basically a private excavation. You have to imagine. So this is close to Vienna. It's a multi-story underground thing. The few things they could measure went down up to like 60 meters with the ground radars which they got.
This thing here, is that what you're talking about?
This is, well, Kush is one of, I showed him before, Kush is one of the guys who is an researcher at this particular site as well. The site
Yeah.
itself is private, but he's one of the, let's say, academic or professor or research collaborators. And it was just incredibly interesting to see this underground site, because it's a private excavation. And
Hey, look, there he is himself, Mephistopheles.
yes,
Hey, bro. Good to see you. What's up? Sorry.
and you don't only have one layer, which is supposedly, they call it Roman, I want to say for lack of a better term, and you have some Latin inscriptions. They connected back to an individual called Stephen Harding. Here you have him. You can go to the next one, or to the Harding one. Because apparently there were all kinds of documents in the local abbot stored. And because the private excavator had a good relationship with the archivar of that particular local church, whenever the abbot wasn't there, the archivar would give him a call and be like, dude, maybe now it's a good time to come over. The abbot isn't here. And then they would go to his room and like scour through this old script, supposedly in medieval Latin. Apparently, I don't
Well,
know,
that's all they were doing. I mean,
written by this Harding guy, or about this Harding guy.
Hmm.
And then it's interesting that there were instances both where they found something within the excavation side, which they could later confirm with the script, but also things which they first found in the script and could later confirm in the excavation side. And one of the things, so there's many different things to say about it. I talk a little bit more on that talk with Nachiketa on my channel. And again, maybe we should do a whole show about it because there's too much information to go through in just a few minutes. But one of the main ideas here is that in around 1550, there is a decree. Again, we have to verify the timeline and whether it's a real document and so on. But basically saying they want to close off, and I hear myself just most slightly, Andreas. Maybe you can turn down your volume just a little bit. I guess it's resonating through your headphones or something. Thank you. Where was I? Yeah, basically closing off all these Earth access sites. And the thing here being that they basically say everyone now has to close them off. But now imagine the co-owner of Red Bull, who was or is still an Austrian, now it's his son. The former guy was called Didi Mateschitz. He was known to be one of the most famous, most richest guys in Austria. Everybody knows Red Bull, even in Europe. That's the one thing. And I think it's 49% Austrian owned or about that, and the rest belongs to this Thai guy or whatever. And Mateschitz owned huge swaths of lands in different areas in Austria and basically realized he himself has access to about 40 of these underground access sites. And then what they discovered, and this is again just one small part of the whole thing, and I only attended one 5-hour presentations. There is quite a few more few-hour presentations and different books about this and all of that. But anyways, Mateschitz then or they discovered at also this site close to Vienna that there appears to be a quartz vein connecting from at least one particular room or area. In front of that room, you have strange glyphs that you can only see with UV light, which show like a Templar cross, something that would mean portal, and something else, which could either relate to the apparent ritual conception site that appears to be in that place, and like ritual bathing site for women, and even like energetic spots where you stand and you can feel the magnetic shift. We even had participants doing that live, and they said, yes, I can sense this or that. So that's a real thing. And it's just it's in the corner or something, or you put your hands into the wall and you get these kind of almost medical analysis effects or something really interesting. But anyways, you have these quartz veins, and Mateschitz then even said, okay, because the theory is that these quartz veins connect each of these underground Earth access sites or underground rooms or even underground apartments or cities, depending on how large they could really be. He negotiated with the government to actually do measurements every 50 meters between two of these particular sites, like to do probing, like actual physical probing every 50 meters. And he could verify, yes, it's true. They're directly connected by a quartz vein over potentially, I don't know, 100 or hundreds of kilometers. But now get this, at the entrance, and I sent you the pictures of this whole underground access thing, they started to, everything was filled up, everything was closed up. So this guy privately started, digging everything up. And in one of the first rooms, you basically have frescoes at the wall. He was just removing the dirt. Then you could see the fresco, and he actually showed.
Is this what you're talking about?
This is partially he's talking about different areas, I guess, but Kush is one of those main researchers. You can let it B-roll if you want. So at the entrance, you have these frescoes, and there you see a depiction of the underground entrance and some kind of strange metal spiral, which may be like an instrument. And then the idea would be that it could be, and they apparently also found documentation about this in the scripts, you take this metal rod device into the underground area, you put it potentially into this room, whereas the glyphs in front say portal, and it's connected to a quartz vein. And they even found the combination or the sequence of 4 particular tunes you would have to evoke, let's say. And then the theory came up, could it be that this is some sort of a, and now get this, teleportation room? And then what they did, because they regularly had presentations there, even though they have a complete ban on properly publicizing anything, because it's connected to something they would generally call the Danube civilization. And then they come up with the good excuse to say, oh, we don't basically want German-speaking people to think they have any relevant heritage, lest, you know, what's going to happen. So anything related to Danube civilization is not going to be researched, is not going to be mentioned or anything like that. And what they also had during one of the presentations is Zeilinger, who is actually maybe now somewhat known, a physicist from Austria who actually recently won the Nobel, I want to say Peace Prize, no, Physics Prize, because he already 10, 20 years ago developed cryptographic applications, which I guess were related to quantum science and usable for banks or something like this. He was attending this presentation, and when he was presented with the idea that this could potentially teleport both organic and inorganic material, he just said, well, I can well imagine it, so you better be able to imagine it as well. That's what a physics Nobel laureate says about this place. You know, take it or leave it. But one of the other things they showed, and I even saw it, it's there, they found a bone, which is kind of too thick, too large, but also too short. They found a figurine, which could be like a goddess statuette or whatever. It reminds you of this Venus from Willendorf, if you know Venus from Willendorf. She got popular because this was in 19 something when there wasn't the ban, let's say, on Danube civilization yet, because in the EU, basically you get no funding. And at least one researcher who helped this excavation, who was an archaeologist or something along those lines.
Why don't you say she looked like Lizzo? Sorry, keep going.
He got completely kicked out of academia only for being willing to investigate something that doesn't fit the narrative. So this one, you know, but this other statuette, I sent you the pictures at least, shortened legs, like I said, and almost seems like a, I want to say, crypto-humanoid. So it's humanoid.
Where did you send the photos?
I sent it on Telegram as a zip file, but it's just for you for now.
Oh, okay.
And we'll see which images are already public, and then we can maybe show some of those.
Fair.
But and I'm sure they are existing somewhere. But basically, having this crypto humanoid as a statuette, and then at the same time having this bone, which clearly does not match to be a human bone. It's not a dinosaur bone, but it fits this statuette. And that's, of course, very strange. Trying to publish this in Europe, of course, is utterly impossible. But what then happened, funnily enough, is because they have, I guess, doing this over 20 years, connections all around the world. Luckily, he was able to collaborate or have it sent to a university in Kazan, and they published it. But from what he said, this has not been translated.
In
I guess
Kazan.
Kazan.
In like
Yeah. No, Kazan. Yeah.
All right, cool.
And by the way, yeah, Kazan, who is the end boss of Octopath Traveler 2, by the way, but you know, that's I brought this up before. Exactly, yeah, Kazan, yeah. And they assisted in publishing this, but it's only in Russian apparently, and they didn't translate it to English or German yet. So again, it just shows you so clearly. I mean, it's the same with America, but also how the Europeans are like completely kept in the dark. And this is how you can, you know, generate conflict and all that BS drama by having everyone, you know, on a need-to-know basis,
isolated,
but not just need to know, but need to know the narrative, you know, and everything else is shadow banned and gets no funding.
Oh, that's brutal.
Yeah, and this is one of the main relevant presentations. This was at a let's say alternative conference. I actually wrote the guy, you know, who did this and asked him, hey, don't you want to have this translated into English, because people really should know about this. But as I can see now, he didn't write back yet, so let's see. It's a really bit strange to me that even here, I mean, it goes in both directions, but even from German to English, there is information that appears to be kind of privileged, because I did a short search and I found maybe like a 10-15 minute English presentation on this. But at the same time, I'm wondering, like, why has no one properly translated this yet? Like, how is this even possible? Because I'm sure there is some very explicit and particular findings that may not exist in the same way in the English-speaking region. But like, I don't know, nobody cares, or I don't know.
You're just you're just a year ahead of the game, man. Not everybody is AI translating everything yet, but it'll happen soon. And yeah, the CC checks
even without AI
work. Yeah, the CC, like if you want to read it, you can the CC checks usually work all right. But AI listening and translating right now is so much better than the CC captions can do.
Well,
It's like,
ideally, in a year, YouTube will have an integrated feature, and we'll just be change language to this or that. It should actually, I mean, they should be possible soon enough, I think. At least for videos that have over 50,000 views or something,
yeah.
should be possible.
Speaking of which, Mr. Beast, you know what? I waited until everyone was against him to be for him. I don't know what else to tell you. But anyway, here he is in like a big old tunnel full
This is
of
in
everything.
Romania, I believe,
Yeah.
and maybe we had brought this up before, or I just posted it in my chat about these salt mines.
How
And
based
also,
is this? That he went to an underground city, right, in Romania. Come on.
yeah, so I was like, whatever you may think of him, at least he's showing people there's huge structures underground, which, even he's getting into Hollow Earth now,
Yeah.
literally. Of course, bringing all these crazy people, but that's not the point here. I just wanted to show that basically he's doing an underground thing. And
Yeah.
also one story I heard, maybe true or not, but that even during the time of, I believe it was Ceausescu in Romania, so one of the communist dictators, they would say, that they supposedly apparently found some very strange apparatus in one of these huge mountains, which this is now just hearsay, but still I'll relay it. They found some super high-tech thing, which was literally guarded by an energy barrier. A few soldiers died, then they managed to get in, and this was supposedly some type of ultra-advanced machinery. But then, of course, it got swept under the rug or something. Maybe even the guy locally wanted to do something with it, but I guess, the Americans, whoever came in. And also what I recently heard, again, just relaying hearsay, but still, Nachiketa mentioned this to me on air on that show we recently did, where he said that he's been in contact with one guy who was I guess, US Marine, or whichever department exactly, operating during the whole Iraq thing, where we know one of the first things they did is clean out the museums and all of that. And there was always, and I had heard this even all the way back then, these rumors about, Hussein, he's going crazy. And I'm talking about Saddam Hussein. Don't get it confused with, Obama.
Barack Obama
he was,
Hussein. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
he was going crazy, and he thought he was Nebuchadnezzar and this and that, and something about stargates. And supposedly this US soldier individual has a picture of himself from back then standing next to something that looks exactly like one of those stargates from the movies.
I just want any German or Austrian ever, like, just read the Newsweek article.
Oh, sweet.
Fact check: did the U.S. invade Iraq to access ancient Stargate? I mean, honestly, that's all you need is the title, just to know that they're covering something up. Like, when does Newsweek have to spend time explaining to you that we didn't go to Iraq to fight Stargates? I mean, actually, to fight dragons in mountains and to take Stargates. That's what Iraqis believe, right? That I've talked to, which is pretty funny, but is what it is.
Oh, they believe it themselves, really?
Yeah, so there are definitely I'm not saying everyone's the same, but I've definitely talked to Iraqis who've been like, so like, right? It's pretty well. It's a pretty common. If anyone's Iraqi and you've heard this before, type 1. I don't know what else to say.
Well, what I like about it is that it's both, superseding the cover story of weapons of mass destruction or whatever they said, but it's also superseding the economic cover sidetrack story of oil or whatever else. So, I mean, by now I would well imagine that most conflict and destruction is made to ensure that the narrative stays in place. So from that perspective, it would not be out of the realm of possibilities that this was one of the main reasons, at least.
Yeah, right. Well, what's this?
Yeah, of course.
Where's the curve, bro?
What do we have here?
Andrew Tate with the curve. You had some Andrew Tate video you wanted to play? I don't know why.
Yeah, he's even got AI hair on this. This was the crypto scam section.
Oh, okay. That's why.
Let's see.
I mean, if anybody's like crazy enough to put money
once again, you skipped over a whole area, but it's okay. We'll get back to it.
Do you want me to go back to the thing you're saying?
No. It's okay. We go through this first because this will be quicker. I don't want to talk about it so much. So
I can go way back. Okay.
No, don't. Let's finish this up first, because anyways, I want to go through this first. This is just this guy scamming people. And why did I put this up? Just because he made this ridiculous, supposed AI planet. And it basically, they knew themselves it was a scam from the very beginning.
Yeah.
And I'm all right. And why do I put this on? Because there is the next video. So maybe put up the Generation Riba video and the Trump crypto coin video, because now I have a new question.
Where is that? Is that like early on or later
That's
on?
under cryptic scam, so it should be later.
Hold on. Cryptic scam.
Yes.
Generation Riba and coin. Okay, this one here.
Yes. And
Is this about
it's
Riba?
good.
The country singer?
Yeah. So it's basically just about interest, and it's so funny because this is like a
I was hoping it was going to be about, isn't that like the country singer? Oh, it's Reba. Darn it. I was like thinking like it was Reba, because everybody loves Reba. No? Not familiar. Okay, whatever. Reba. So what is Reba? Reba.
Yeah, so riba is interest in I guess this is the current, I don't even know how you would say it, Arabic term for it, Quranic term, I'm not exactly sure how you would say it, but term that's commonly used to denote interest. And of course, you understand in Islamic banking, they have some type of different systems, but here it's just so funny because you have this super highly well-produced video. Stay on it for a second.
Whoa, I didn't know. So interest in the Quran is called riba. Riba? Okay.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Excess, increase, addition. Okay, great. Good to know. Okay.
Also, something that may be interesting to check out in relation to this is the Green Book by Gaddafi, where he also talks about some variant of like profit sharing and says, the producer and they should all kind of, band together in a proper way and not be so exploitative. Some interesting ideas. But anyhow, here you have this super high grade produced video and it's like, oh, don't you know interest? It's banned and it's bad and this and that. And what you may note at the top right, there is a permanent blend in which says capital at risk. And why does it say that? Because even though the video is, quite well done and, may stir some, how should I say, religious fervor in the most positive sense in terms of not wanting to extort someone and not having an interest upon interest system, which creates many types of issues and forced debt and so on. But then in the end, they are most likely, as it seems, promoting some kind of scam investment platform, so.
Well, I mean, yeah, I'm curious about it. I mean, we're talking about like crypto, crypto, like it's like a Arabic crypto.
So I haven't looked into the detail, but from what it appears, I would have to look closer. What it appears, basically at the back end, is just some random scam, whatever, yeah. But they make this really fancy video, which is technically correct enough, But then they just want you to download some app and invest God knows where, and it doesn't seem to be the most trustworthy or have a track record or anything like that. So I just want to say, in terms of like, oh, to be against usury, that's amazing and nice. But then they just promote another scam, and that's why they can afford to have such a high value production video, which makes you feel bad for having $100 in the bank and get 0.5% interest currently in the West, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Banking is crazy. I don't know, but this is the thing about the new plan to have privatization, because it'll lead to crypto, and is crypto going to be controlled? I don't know. We'll have to see. I'm not. I need someone to I need some crypto, blockchain, Bitcoin evangelists to constantly come tell me it's going to be all right, like every few days. It's been that way since 2010. Since 2010. You know what I mean? Like, that's my religion now. It's just like, tell me it's going to be all right. I mean,
I'm all for decentralization and innovation in systems of exchange. And again, I think this is the only real, let's say, philosophical and lasting value that the whole crypto game will bring, because still too many of the coins are owned by a few unknown anonymous wallets. We still don't know if Satoshi Nakamoto actually means CIA, all of that. But here, what I like, so this is CoffeeZilla, and I think the title here is accurate enough. I watched the video, and basically my new question would be, and I would have had my issues with him before the Trump
There's
court.
no way I'm going to use your money Like it has like the face of Charles on it. You know what I mean? Like that's gross. You know what I mean? I'd rather use like Trump toilet paper. Like you get like, do you have any idea how weird that is? Okay, I'm sorry. Keep going.
You can pull up the video if you want, and maybe skip in a little
I was
bit.
just overwhelmed by the thought of British money. British money goes bad. You know what I mean? Like you have to use British money quickly, or else they like penalize you. You can't like save British money in a mattress. All right. Anyway, this is Voidzilla, who I like. Voidzilla is, I mean, I don't know why. I just really like this brand of Midwestern dude from like Chicago who survived their abusive family. I don't know what it is about me. I'm just a big fan of that kind of person. And he goes out of his
So
way. Wait, am I not subscribed? That's ironic. No, like I support you.
there are
Cool,
several
bro.
channels. It's got several channels. So well, I want Coffeezilla to investigate Tartaria.
No,
No,
I want him to
he's
investigate
investigating.
the
He's
Open Borders
investigating
Foundation.
scams.
Yeah, he
He's
should
investigating
investigate the
scams.
Open
So
Borders Foundation and lead right back to it.
he should investigate the Scaligerian timeline, and see if it's a scam. That's what
Smithsonian.
I'm
He could
for.
investigate the Smithsonian
Yes,
history. I don't know. I
yes.
think the thing
So
he's such a like he's a certain kind of skeptic. I'm trying not to compare him to a certain friend of mine that I think you all know I'm comparing him to. And he's definitely like that. He's a very skeptical person who's going to believe in the narrative. And even though he's against the narrative, he's going to latch onto the narrative as a place of stability because that's order. So I don't know. I wouldn't give. Yeah, there you go. That was it. That was it right there. He's the kind of guy who says, "Yeah, exactly. That's all."
So here, what he's pointing out is basically, it seems Trump and some of his family have associated themselves as chief crypto evangelists for a certain supposed new crypto coin thing. And I have to say, if this is correct, I think it looks amazingly bad, because everyone could speculate about, did Trump go bankrupt, what background connections, this and that, 100,000 things people don't like about him, or economic whatever. But here it seems they literally associated their own family brand name with the crypto that they promote as so new and amazing and whatever. But what it actually is, it is simply nothing more than a fork of an existing protocol. They create their own brand name of it and submitted a proposal for it, that company. And to this new company, Trump put their own names as like chief evangelists, and they're supposed to get 75% of the eventual revenue from that system or something. And it's simply decentralized lending, which I first heard about in 2016, I believe, was salt lending, crypto lending. So it's nothing new, it's nothing revolutionary, it's an existing protocol, yet Trump makes it seem like a big thing. And why did I connect it back, and why did I show the Andrew thing with the Planet T, whatever? Because also he's now doing something, and get this, he's calling it Daddy Coin. Everyone, save your psychoanalysis. And it's just crazy, like now all kinds of popular individuals, I mean, even Tate and Trump, I would say, how should I say, are promoting highly questionable crypto endeavors officially. I mean, with Tate, I mean, he probably needs it for legal fees, but with Trump, he should have had enough money for legal fees to first check out the product and system properly, and just not associate his own name with it. And it also looks as if the pre-sale or first sale only went to 12 million or whatever from 100 or whatever they wanted to raise. So no one's really buying into it. So it seems to be a flop, this new Trump thing they're promoting. But still, I'm like, doesn't the Trump family have enough lawyers to do due diligence and realize in advance if it's really something effective or if it's just a trash coin? I mean, what's going on here? Yeah, Baron is also on the list. That's
Dang
correct.
it! I muted myself. So let's
Baron,
see.
who's been underground 100 years ago in his underground adventures.
So here's let me wrap this all around. So Project 2025 and big tech means cryptocurrency people put their ponies on Trump and Vance. Not necessarily that Trump and Vance put their horse and pony on Bitcoin, but that Bitcoin money's there, right? And then they moved from the left to the right for this election because they figured they could really control things. And it's not fair to say Teal's doing this completely, right? Because Thiel's also maneuvered around without giving a dollar to Trump this election. It's actually been through all of his associates, right, and friends,
Right.
and people like Musk and things like that, right? So it's a pretty powerful position for crypto to be in because it was the cheapest pony to purchase in a lot of ways, and also because we're looking at, this is the funny part of it, this argument about Marxism. You know, they're constantly telling you that the Democrats are Marxist, but I don't know if that's totally true. I mean, it's not untrue, but the left is not more Marxist than the right, and I've been pushing that point for a long time. And particularly if you think about the new right, which is based around it's crypto privatization. So anybody can do it as long as they're the cheapest bidder. This is the future of economic driven corporatism. So, I mean, you could also look at that as a kind of Marxism, right? Like the idea of seizing the means of reproduction and the revolutionary tools for the working class. That is the same as having different asset, like IRC20 tokens for Ethereum. That is kind of I think Ethereum is kind of Marxist, right? Because you're putting your energy into particular capital. You're saying this capital is worth this economy is worth that. I think if you use open solar token or any of those kinds of tokens, that's kind of Marxist, right? Because you're using tokens that represent actual resources that are being controlled by
Right.
actual investment in those
You
resources.
mean you have an ownership in the means of production? Is that what you're referring to?
That's pretty much it. Yeah,
Virtualized,
you have
let's
an
say.
owner, you have a virtualized ownership, and that's what a smart contract represents. Yeah. So that's what gives it
I mean,
value.
yeah, the only issue or question is if the guys who are setting it up are the super big time industrialist oligarchs and they, have the biggest wallets, then I'm not sure
True, but like
how
that's
effective
the
that
other
is
thing
from a
about,
workers' revolution perspective.
because the thing is that you could move away from a Bitcoin to a silver bit, was it Litecoin or whatever, these other, like those coins emerged as proof that you didn't have to rely in the Bitcoin. That Bitcoin was going to be the big boys coin, but you could have avoided that coin at any cost and used, I mean, Ethereum is still a competitive coin, right? So anybody could create a smart contract Soviet. Let's say we have a knitting circle and we make textiles, in India. Well, we could create a textile coin that represents the value exchanged from textiles and exchange that for solar tokens, for metal, for gold, right? There are gold backed cryptocurrencies, right? So everything's either backed by goods, services, labor, exchange, the work, right? The labor, the worker. This very much is about capital and labor. So it's inescapable. It's weird how people act like they're like, "Oh, I'm so against Marxism." It's like, no, you just didn't read the book, It's like all it is every time. You're playing into it,
Well,
you know?
I like the argument, though, that in this way you could say that all of the anarcho-libertarian crypto anarchists are actually crypto Marxists.
Yeah, or ignorant Marxists. I think like that's the other thing. A lot of people don't realize what they're doing. They're like, what would be cool is if everyone had just exactly what they needed. It's like, shut up, bro. Like, go to college, every single time. And that's as bad as someone who goes to college and thinks, why can't it all just be right? Well, because you didn't go to the engineering class and learn about entropy. Like, there's a lot of things that have to work to make a
Good
society.
point. Yeah, it's how do you call it? Compartmentalization, the downfall of society.
I mean, you know what? Here's one for calming sense. It's only the rich people are only telling the poor people not to send their kids to college. You know what I mean? The rich people are still sending their kids to college. That's the elite that are running things. Yeah, liberal brainwashing is definitely a serious problem. Don't get me wrong. I get why people are not going to college, but do you have any idea how many programming and university engineering students are getting around that by not taking those classes and worrying about the multicultural emphasis? I mean, not everybody's college experience is what we're projecting it to be. And there's a lot of ways around that. There's a lot of really disciplined students that, I mean, and I feel really bad for them because there's always going to be some rich middle
I mean, what I
class
would have to say now, honestly,
protesters.
considering, because I spoke about this with Nachiketa, and in Europe or in Austria, you can get a great chunk and even everything, if you do it right, of your higher education to be paid for by the state, basically.
Yeah, of course.
So
Right.
at least for, I mean, they really slashed it down. Before it was like up to 26. So up until you turn 26, you would get like extra support from the government if you were studying. Just about as I was to enter the whole system, they already had slashed it to like 24 or something. And anyways, I went to a remote university, not in Austria, so I couldn't fully benefit from that system. But now imagine, what is the average student debt loan? I mean, maybe for a college thing, or how do you call it, community college, it's a little bit less and it's affordable. But other than that, I'm like, by now, wouldn't it be a million times more effective to enroll my child in like, I don't know, 1-2 particular online courses, and then maybe like hire 1-2 particular private tutors and teachers, people that I
classic
trust
way.
and that really know what's going on? Then, you know,
Yeah, I mean, you
my
get
child doesn't
5
have to
parents
go to
together.
university 5 days a week, but only 3 days a week,
If you
learns
have 5
twice the amount, and you can still go drinking on the weekend if that's what you want. Yeah, so
if you have
I'm like,
5
what?
different sets of parents that have 5 different kids, and sometimes people have more than one kid, right? Like, but if you have even just one kid, then that's enough that you can pay 5 teachers for 5 days a week and split it to create a private school. And it's crazy how easy it is to build a system like that. And that's before talking about computing, Khan Academy, all of the direct lessons. Because the way it should be now is that kids at their leisure are watching these lectures, and then the teacher is helping them do the work. It's the complete inverse of the way it was before. You don't do the work at home alone, right? That's probably a time when you can study, it's completely backwards. Now you have the teacher helping you figure out how to do the things and move forward quicker. And this is all on an individual basis, because before you didn't want it to be on an individual basis. You wanted everyone to be at the same level. They move too fast, you had to slow them down. If they're moving too slow, you have to catch them up. Today, we don't do that. We don't want to do that. You want people to be able to move as fast as they can towards where they need to go, right? So,
Agreed.
we talked about the Project 2025, and we talked about crypto, and that was silly. So let's go back to German English cognates. What do you say?
Yeah, so this is the section now. This will be the last section for today from what I brought about East Turia. As David told me, this is one of the names for Austria, actually, whereas West Turia is Switzerland. And here I just wanted to point out to anyone who doesn't know, also because at some point someone wrote, oh, it's the first time I heard about Austria and so on, which I guess is amazing. Not because I'm so patriotic, but because it's always great to hear about new places and strange things going on there. I just put this on to make everyone perfectly cognizant of the fact, even in modern day languages, how incredibly close German and English are in many different ways. So here you have these so-called cognates, where, yeah, just as a starting point, you see how many connections there are between German and English. And we can go on to the next one. Yeah,
Surprise.
so this is one of the individuals of Corona Datencheck, a very interesting guy. He's a dentist, and at least ever since Corona, did great activism videos. Even before, made videos on dentistry, like trying to help and explain different techniques and so on to people, I'd say medically or health-wise, how they can take care of themselves better. But then in the lockdown period, he started with activism, and he actually then started, investigating all kinds of topics, or basically archiving them, because he realized how all these things interrelate. And even today, I think we'll see him briefly later, he's still doing, I think, quite great videos, like explaining psychological patternings, explaining how, all the world is a stage, but at the same time giving like practical insight, and usually very calm, and having, I want to say, like a systems type approach, which I always appreciate. Again, describing patterns, having people understand different ideologies, and also contextualizing whatever is currently going on in the media, and giving great commentary. And he was one of the guys when sometime during one fateful night, I saw that he was posting stuff about religion or something or Catholics. And then I just right away posted in the chat, like, oh, maybe you want to check this and this out. And he actually said, oh, it's great, it's amazing. I'm going to repost it on my server or whatever he did there. So that's based. And that's one
Rad.
of the reasons why some people actually got exposed to the information, which I think, of course, is amazing when people watch Xirtus. And the one video he added on there may be interesting to check out. I still have to properly look at it. It's about medieval city planning.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, the question, cities were planned on the drawing board, question mark. So I'll again have to look at this properly and like understand the interconnections and how this would relate with the timeline and all of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, and here even you see below, only the truth is always censored. Well, there you go.
Yeah. And then also, what's this? The
Oh yeah,
Austria
no,
first.
this no. What does this remind you of? Just the title itself.
America first, Germany first.
Yeah. And well, I mean,
Rome
come on,
first.
let's not go back too far, okay? I was
Okay.
referring to, but you're right, of course. But here it's funny that so the guy we talked about last time, and you got so fascinated by his socks, Jörg Haider,
Yeah, he did have
he
great socks.
was, let's say, one of the original Freedom Party maximalists, I want to say, who managed, to get a lot more support. And because you have to imagine, after the war in 1945, they're basically, you had two main parties, the Socialist Party and the Conservative Party. And basically for 30, 40 years, they ruled everything. And you even have something called Sozialpartnerschaft, whereas you have a special separate meeting between employees and employers and industrialists or something like this. And they actually make all kinds of deals aside from politics anyhow. And you have the unions, of course. You also have those in America. Anyhow, he was one of the first guys who kind of wanted to break this up. And one of the first really successful, not rallies, but ballots or whatever you did, how do you call it? When you make a survey or you ask the whole population about something, is there a term for this? Do you even have this in America? Petition? Can you do like
Petition?
but is there like an official way to do petitions which actually end up in Congress? I'm not talking about some online sites, but is there like a legal process for this in
A little
America?
bit.
I mean, there's hearings and stuff, but anyhow, in
We
Austria,
have
it's like,
like petitionforchange.org or whatever. And I
yeah,
think
but
that
it's like whatever. But there is no legal
it's like, everybody
connection
needs a
there.
cause. That's a great way to get a pet cause. You're like, look at all these people. They sign up. I'll be the
I
congressman.
mean, I'm not claiming that the system we have is really more effective, but at
Bro,
least
the system
technically,
works
there is a
at not
legal
working.
connection because in Austria, if you do an official, it's called
No, not a
Volksbefragung.
census. A census is just figuring out like how many people are away, like I just want to know like how many of you are transgender. Oh, can't do that.
So
What is
it's
it?
called Volksbefragung. So how did we say it's called a petition? But it's like an official legal thing. This was one of the most successful petitions there was in Austria. And the idea is that if these petitions get enough vote, they have to be presented to the parliament or to the Congress, right? Where then technically they should devise some sort of law or adaptation. Of course, most usually, if it's anything that's not anyways an astroturfed how do we call it? Not survey, not ballot, but
Census
petition.
petition.
If
Sure.
it's if it's not an astroturf petition, then of
Yeah.
course the parliament is just throwing it out anyways, So I'm not saying it's really more effective, but it exists. I just wanted to point out that definitely Trump is not the one who came up with the idea of America first, but you had Austria first, such a long time
Oh
ago.
yeah.
Also, this guy was
That's not going
painted
to
up.
help, by the way. Like, if you tell Americans that, because they're already, this week, it's all like, Trump's a fascist, just so you know.
Oh, well, and he's a crypto scammer apparently. But anyways,
Oh my
so
God.
um, so just want to point out that also he already in the early 90s then was vilified. I talked a bit more about this on last Neuropa, and he eventually got killed in 2008. Oh, sorry, no. As I explained, he was too drunk officially, and all the strange things happening.
Show
But
me the
anyways,
meme, Jen.
just found it curious that you both have someone
Russia,
saying,
no. Project 2025, no. Hitler, no. This is like every blue this month, like about Trump. They're just like, but but
Oh,
Russia, no. It's just been nonstop. Is what it is.
anyhow, just find it funny that you have two, let's say, individuals or political groups both coming up with the idea of my own country first, and they both get vilified to the extreme. I just find that curious.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, also just it's funny how any word can mean the exact opposite of what it did within like 20 years. That's all it takes. Bad means good means bad means good every 20 years. It's crazy. What about Van der
Oh, and
Bellen?
also, just so anyone who wants to know what we just showed, you can look at this Austria First petition, and it will probably sound a lot like many things that they are both talking about Austria now and would also probably want for America. Maybe scroll down a little bit. Yeah.
Whoa, look at that sign. That's pretty. That looks
No,
in
but there
black
was
and
a
white. That's like very like obey. I like it.
there was a good list, Yona Chiqueta. Go please back to the Wikipedia and go
Yeah,
make it English,
yeah.
and we can briefly look at the list. So here, scroll in a bit, or
Austria is
don't have
not an
to.
immigration country.
Yeah, maybe just
Immigration
read through
stopped
it.
to satisfactory solutions for illegal immigration question until the housing shortage is eliminated and the unemployment rate is reduced to 5%. Obligation to issue ID to foreign workers at workplace, whereby this ID must show the work permit and the registration for health insurance. Increase the executive foreign police, criminal police, as well as their better pay and equipment to record illegal foreigners and to fight crime more effectively, especially organized crime. Immediate creation of permanent border protection. Customs, gendarmerie. What's the gendarmerie?
Oh, gendarmerie. This was like the country police.
Oh, okay. Instead of federal army operation. Well, that's kind of interesting. So that's basically a militia then? I'd have to learn more about what the gendarmerie is.
They don't exist
Relaxation.
anymore. This was like just like the police basically for the countryside, and now they're all under one thing, police.
I don't know. That's okay. Relaxation of the school situation by limiting the proportion of pupils with foreign mother tongue in compulsory and vocational school classes with a maximum of 30% for more than 30% proportion of foreign language children, establishing of regular foreign language classes.
And imagine now, just briefly, there are schools apparently in Vienna. I'm sure not all of them, but with some it would be bad enough. Where apparently, I mean, when I went to school many years ago, it was maybe, I don't want to lie now, but I think out of 30 individuals in primary school, more or less, there were like 10 quote unquote foreigners, or clearly, from Poland, from Albania, from wherever. But out of those, again, maybe there were 5 who couldn't properly really speak German, but the others were really fine. And now what you have, supposedly some schools were up to 90% can't properly
Wow.
speak German. And then I'm like, I'm sorry. And
That's
it's
the end of
just
the
so
language.
hilarious that 30 years ago you had somebody warning about this. He was vilified, whatever you want to do with immigration or anything, but it's obvious you cannot educate anyone if 90% don't speak the language they're supposed to be educated in. It's obviously a complete mess. And there is 100 million things I'm sure they could have done well in advance to structure the educational system in a way that it would not have this heavy load, even with increased pressure as it is now. For whatever reason the immigration is happening, let's leave that aside. But of course, nobody cared to do anything. And now we have this situation, even though it was warned about over 30 years ago. And the guy
Yeah.
was vilified for mentioning it even. So it's kind of ridiculous. And then, the next thing is one of my favorite guys, who is the Austrian president.
Hold on,
But
let's
he's a smoker, so there's one thing positive about him.
this is this video here?
Oh yeah, so he's not the president, but anyone who for some strange reason wants to, but he just deleted his whole channel. He got pretty big during the lockdown period, and now he's only got 2 videos. For some reason he deleted all his old stuff.
Weird.
I'm not exactly sure why.
Smart.
But here, he's skipping around again.
Oh.
So,
I didn't mean
so
to. I thought this was
it's
the
okay.
next video. Is this the next
Yeah,
one or
yeah, yeah,
what?
yeah. No, it is. I just want to talk about it for a
Oh,
second.
okay, okay.
So show the guy. Yes, okay.
Okay.
So they are talking about just what's happening currently in Austrian politics, as I may have mentioned before, that although the Freedom Party, again, won the most votes, what they decided now, so the update of the Austrian government formation is this. They did not want to tell the Freedom Party guy make a government because it seems, and what is the definition of conspiracy? Non, how do you call it? none dare call it conspiracy, or none shall call it conspiracy, when two or more individuals, get together in secret to, okay, well, unlawful or harmful, maybe this could be debated, plotting or conspiring, and that's for sure. So it appears as if all the four other parties in the parliament, even before the election, already agreed that they will in some way, shape, or form put together a government, regardless of how strong the Freedom Party will become, which again was the only party that had any criticism during the lockdowns and said anything useful at all. And so
Here's
what
a
the
good
president,
definition: agreement,
yes,
union, unanimity. Noun of action from past participle stem. Conspirare, to agree, unite, plot. Literally, to breathe together.
yeah, they were certainly breathing together because already months ago there were rumors about these individuals meeting and already having government type negotiations, even though it was well before the elections, and even though I think almost all of the four parties either remained very small or the too big. Well, it's not I cannot really brush it with one brush, but overall, if you look at the election result, it's very clear the only ones who massively gained were the Freedom Party, and everyone else basically lost. And now, because already they had agreed upon beforehand that no matter how strong the Freedom Party becomes, it's now the strongest party, they don't want to have them in the government. They basically in advance agreed upon doing anything and everything to make that happen. Good thing is that the current president, where I had mentioned that the election for him had to be redone 1 or 2 times because the glue supposedly didn't stick on the voting cards or something like this. And then he supposedly won by 26,000 votes, because this was the Green Party guy. The other guy would have been a Freedom Party guy as president. So the Green Party guy got in. He even got re-elected. And now, instead of telling the parties, well, maybe get along with the Freedom Party, they're the strongest one, so at least make an honest effort and then maybe explain why you cannot cooperate, all they're doing is they're pretending like they're in kindergarten, and or even worse than that, don't want to say anything bad about the kindergarten level of intelligence and emotional intelligence. So all they're saying now is, oh, I don't want to work with the Freedom Party guy, we don't like him, he's too radical, he's too whatever, which again may well be because he was in charge of the Interior Ministry in 2018 for a year, more or less, and may have started digging up things which maybe the others didn't like, and just generally is espousing views which at the very least you could say, how should I say, are not completely conforming to the general mainstream liberal consensus. Yeah. And now what happened is the Green Party president, whom you maybe who will see him later, again, not him, the Green Party president basically said, oh, because nobody wants to work with this one particular guy from the Freedom Party who's leading it, I'm just going to give the official mandate for forming a government to the second strongest party, which, lost like 10% or something like this. They really got slashed, but still, they don't care. And the next video you were about to show up, this is this dentist guy who also shared our video. His name is Jaroslav Belsky, and he's explaining it in a quite succinct fashion, I believe. Maybe you can put him on. Or now it's...
Not this guy, the one before it.
Yes.
This guy.
Yes. So he's basically saying thank you to Van der Bellen, because he's now explaining, look at the real situation politically, and also look at, he's calling it the ugly face of representative democracy. So basically, whereas you have people talking about how important voting are and how much they respect the voter and democracy is so important, of course you have mechanisms through the constitution, through the president, through other background things we don't know about, or even just through the Supreme Court, and the same applies for America, as I understand, where you simply have, let's say, checks and balances in the system, quote unquote, that are so far removed from any supposed sovereign voter that if you want, even if the elections would be perfectly valid, unobfuscated, and unmanipulated, you still have 100, how they say, a million ways to Sunday, whatever that means exactly, to still fudge it in any shape or form that you want. And that just becomes crazily obvious right now. So what he is pointing out is basically that's a good thing. So many people can now wake up to this reality. It's never been different, Just so far, they were better at handling the election results, or maybe there weren't just so many percentage of people really critical and not anymore buying into guilt by association or by just claiming, oh, you're too radical because of whatever made up reason. Maybe because that's breaking. Now it's really becoming obvious, and it's of course becoming obvious to a large percentage of the population as well. So this may even be a great step towards awakening when people realize that, yeah, big surprise, those people in those classes, they're only, many of them, pretending to be for the population, but actually they are mainly interested in maintaining their own power base and serving whatever strange masters they may have, even if it's just financial markets.
Apple Eater with Rome, we were talking, spurging about Austrian politics, actually. Right now we're talking about the Green Party, and then we're about to go into these guys. They do a stream weekly that's pretty funny called, it's like Zero Punked, which is like 0 point.
0 points, yes.
You know what I
So
mean?
here also they talk about, I guess this is about the president of the Congress or the parliament. And again, I just referenced it here as a link to anyone who for some strange reason wants to get an insight into Austrian politics. These are some things you can look at. You can of course look at official reports, but they are usually incredibly boring and one-sided. So here you have at least some fun commentary on it. And this is the Austrian president of the Green Party, Van der Bellen. As I mentioned, officially, he was a Freemason many, many years ago, but he claims to have left. And of course, he has nothing whatsoever to do. Although, even here, I can tell another background story. At least a few years ago, but there he was already president. Within the main Freemason lodge of Vienna, they literally had his picture hanging there. I don't know if they always have the president's picture there, but then again, maybe if the president's always somehow related to their order, they may always have the president's picture there.
Right?
I don't know exactly, but that's another, hearsay story, let's say, but from a trustworthy source that I can share as a random fun tidbit.
Well, all right, but then those Bavarian boys are just playing around with their like light sources. What's this though? Wrist flex.
Yeah, and here we somehow went the other way around, but this is again, related to
What is going on in Austria? It's like the election season, all kinds of crazy stuff. They just finished the election, and you got to watch the episode. But we were just talking about how the new winner of the election is not really supported by the rest of the status quo in parliament. So even though it seems like a really good thing because people voted for this government, that government doesn't have the power that they should have because they're going to held back by the rest of the coalitions.
And what's also very strange, even in terms of if these surveys are correct, but in terms of public perception and surveys, it's again a similar story to Trump, because the Freedom Party was in the government together with the Conservative Party. They allowed them because the Conservative Party had the most votes, so they could have the chancellor and everything. But during that time of a few years until the whole Strache Ibiza video came up, which we had spoken about, which, was a very auspicious timing because the video existed for many years and seemed very planned. But anyhow, in terms of surveying, it seemed that the people were actually, overall, very satisfied with the Conservative plus Freedom Party government, maybe especially in terms of economic policies and so on, again, reminding me of Trump. And it's really interesting that you can have this where usually they say, people vote with their pockets and so on. So if you would only take that slice of the thing, they should be the ones that are most supported. But then it gets kind of twisted and turned around, at least in the public media perception. I think if you scroll forward a little bit, there may be a graph somewhere where you can see, just skip through it, where you can maybe see the approval ratings. It should be like a graph with approval ratings for the not national president, but president of Congress. Let me see if I can find this.
I don't know exactly where to look, but not sure.
Okay, I can't pull this up too quickly now, but basically, if you look at the approval ratings for government within the last years, it was pretty high during that Conservative plus Freedom Party government.
Right.
And now, as I had mentioned before, the Conservative plus Green Party government, which was also the lockdown government, they literally seem to have the lowest approval rating of any government in Europe, or
Yeah,
potentially
it's like
even
did you see The
any
Lion
government
King?
worldwide. So it's pretty insane.
It's like in The Lion King where like Scar takes over and he's like, everyone's gonna get to eat, but then like nobody gets to eat because there's a famine. It's like that. That's Austrian politics right now. But Mufasa is back through Simba. So what about wrist flex? We were talking about wrist flex for
Yeah,
a
so
second.
here, this is
Sorry.
just briefly about the whole, rapper scandal situation where there is a guy on that video who claims, and he's apparently been involved in the whole Franklin cover-up thing, which was a huge thing, of course. And this guy, apparently, I have to look at the original source video, says that yes, it's like a timed event or something, or everything is already set up, something along those lines. And also talking about the idea that maybe this could bring about some kind of political, societal unification when people generally say, well, we don't need all this trauma bonding going on and whatever trafficking and other things. And maybe we don't want our main pop media stars to be MK Ultra slaves, basically. So
Not
that'd be a
every
cool
single
thing.
one of them.
At least
Wait,
not every single one.
probably every single one of them would be safer though, right? So yeah, that's true. Then our buddy Professor Hamamoto, I love how he's been, on a recommendation pretty much every week for the last couple weeks now, but he's got some pretty cool content. So
Yeah, he's also just talking about this whole situation, and I generally think his perspective is really interesting. Also, yeah, both because of like his ethnic background, his background in academics, and so on. He's cool to listen to. I'm not sure if he's up yet to the new chronology. Like I said, at some point, I'd
soon
love for him to get introduced to that, but
we'll work
we'll
on it.
see.
We'll bring him over here.
Step by
I
step.
did see a slew of comments I wanted to pull up here because
Please do.
Calming said, thanks for the shout out, Andreas. I love your stream. No disrespect, just disagreed. I don't remember what it was that we might have disagreed on. So maybe remind me because I'm always interested to hear new perspectives. Definitely didn't feel disrespected. So don't worry about that. And you would love John Taylor Gatto's Ultimate History Lesson 5-hour interview. I feel like I saw it. I'm going to look it up and make sure to check it out. I promise. Probably easier to wake up YouTube rabbit holers than normies. Maybe. That depends. I think, so if you need to shift everything in order to survive, you will. You know what I mean? So, like, let's say, like, the snow comes, you will change for the snow. So I don't know. I think people will change work, change languages, they'll like whatever you have to do to survive. If you're not really thriving because the society's let you down, that might be a way that you would be open minded to a new solution.
That's
But that's
already
not everybody.
that's another thing I spoke about with Nachiketa. So what's the thing? Why are you even interested in any of this? Why not be like Cypher and just be like, oh, actually, I'm just gonna take a job at Fox News and report about the newest Trump rally.
Yeah, right. I have friends who do that, and I wish them all the best. So, but
Oh,
yeah,
definitely.
definitely John Taylor Gatto is interesting. I have seen. I think I've seen his 5-hour video, but we'll have to. We should like deep dive into that and talk about that later. You also had another comment that was pretty interesting to me. You said, "Is there a way to support Exertus without streaming, without supporting YouTube, and or TubeU?" Yeah, which is sorry if I ruined your point. But you can. Yes, you can. You can go to exertus.com. Exertus is everything. Ooey, ooey, ooey. There's a support the Exertus button there. You can make it reoccurring monthly, which I wish that was just automatically done, but that would be sneaky, right? And I'm not like that. So
Don't
it's
want
on
to have
you.
to handling chargebacks.
You can also go to andreas.me, which is like just because it's cool. I figure you like if you take your mouse and you like swing it around on andreas.me, you get this kind of cool effect. And you can donate 6 ways to Sunday. Actually, 3. There's the donate button here, the donate button there, the donate button yar. So if you prefer the give box or the donor tree, or you want to use PayPal, there's that. I should add. Why don't I have like a crypto wallet donation button there? Anybody know? So I'll fix that and make sure that you can do that. I'm surprised I haven't done that. It's like, what's going on, Andreas? There's probably some reason, right? There might be. I can neither confirm nor deny. So
Yeah,
anyway,
I'm never sure how many people really are using crypto, but yes.
everybody, right? All of you. All of you.
Yes.
I hope you are. And you should definitely support me with crypto, because that would be like the gift that keeps on giving if you just like hold on to it for a period of time.
And it's not one which gets rug pulled, or it's a meme coin, or it's a CIA operation.
Yeah, exactly. At some point, we should
Which
talk
coin
about
am I gonna get exactly now?
the Lost 10 Tribes coin would be cool. But yeah, if you have like a Monero license, like, or
Where's the
wallet.
Tartaria scan coin? I haven't seen that one yet.
Tar coin exists. There's definitely a tar coin. Like that's somebody's done that
yeah?
at some point. Yeah, I think. But that might be like a tar ball or something like that. Well, how about our cool little we'll do it again here. This has been such a lovely day. Brought to you by Winston Churchill. Today couldn't have happened without Winston Churchill, the peacemaker.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for being here.
Ourselves.
I hope you had a wonderful Neuropa.